Hello and welcome. I am Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking talking shit with Eagle, episode 695. Boy, do I have a special guest for you this evening, a gentleman that we all respect very much, the soil steward, Mr. Chris Trump. How you doing, my friend? You want to tell us how you're doing and where you could be found if they want to find you?
Yeah, Eagle, thanks for having me. Hey, everyone. I'm glad to be here. And I am found on Instagram at SoilSteward, and I have a website at christrump.com, and some classes online and classes in person, and a bunch of free stuff on there as well. So, yeah, I teach agriculture on YouTube and around the world.
Very respectable what you do, my friend. Very respectful on many, many levels. Not only what you do teaches you to be a good steward of the soil, but I find it teaches you to be a good steward of yourself as well. There's a lot to be found in that journey as far as finding yourself in the whole process. So
Yeah,
much respect to you.
and nature's not perfect. I people tease me. I know all the things about human health, and I'm learning a ton all the time, and how nature affects that, and at the same time, I'll when I teach classes or I go on a long road trip, I'll have a Red Bull, and I started smoking cigarettes month before last. They won't last forever, but yeah, it's funny. We have true and deep stewardship, kuliana, or privilege responsibility, and then at the same time, we're humans, and we don't do it perfect, even as we do it our best. So yeah, cheers to the beautiful imperfection and the perfection of nature.
Well, I know what your message does greatly apply to the cannabis community, and that is what we mainly talk about here. Uh, but I guess first and foremost, I'm curious, do you consume cannabis or have you ever consumed cannabis, or is that anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, I've had a long journey with cannabis in my life. um I I was born on the big island of Hawaii, and there's yeah, a big cannabis culture there. As I was a kid, um I had a lot of older friends. I started smoking weed when I was 11, and uh smoked it kind of continually. As a kid, I loved school. In some aspects, it came very easy to me, but I get very bored, and weed was this helpful, maybe coping mechanism or whatever. But we had a whole culture of it as a kid. But then when I turned 18, I was like, I'm good. I've had my journey with weed, and I didn't really smoke, drink, or do anything until 2020. I started having trouble sleeping. There was a lot going on, and life was a lot for me personally. Um, as life goes, in your mid 30s with 5 kids. Um, but I started taking it for sleep. A friend that lives here, one of my students, farmed weed in Oregon, and mixed a strain he developed with coconut oil and said, "Hey, try this for sleep." Because I didn't want to try a sleeping pill, and all that stuff's just, I know that's not good for me. And it was hugely helpful. Sleep is really important. So, and then since then, yeah, I smoke occasionally, or have, and still edibles for sleep is the best answer for me. Turning my brain off. I call it a like cloud cloud hammer to the brain. Just stop the noise, all the things you got to do tomorrow, etc. And so yeah, it's sometimes an evening routine. I am winding down this evening, and I mixed a little tobacco with this guy, Terp Wizard. So in traditional kind of Brazilian style or Israeli style, a little tobacco and hash. Terp Wizard is in Wisconsin, no, Michigan.
Michigan. He's a
Yeah,
past guest.
and he they Eric yeah, the grower that grows for him. Sorry, no, that's not the right name. Sorry, it's escaping me. But great grower, and yeah, Terp Wizard's a smart dude. We saw him out at the Regenerative Conference in Michigan this year, and he gave me that. And yeah, some of the best flavors up there, maybe just below a dude in Maine of the conference. So yeah,
Super awesome and very coincidental that you pull out. Because I'm a Michigander myself, and Turp Wizard has been on the show as past guest as well. So pretty coincidental they happened to pull that one up as a sample. But cheers to Turp
yeah,
Wizard, awesome dude, very smart
yeah,
guy,
very cool
gentleman.
dude. Hmm. Yeah, and he likes natural farming, so we get along great. Yeah, I had a half of a work day this morning, and I've had half a day off, and it's been a wonderful afternoon. Had some good food, and yeah, I get to talk to lovely people tonight.
I can't thank you enough to come hanging out. That's for sure. And I don't know why, but the first time that we made scheduled an appearance for the show there, I did as much research as I could, uh, and I could find nothing about cannabis. I think that was part of me being as nervous. I'm like, wow, I just I don't know. This is going to be an awkward one. But if for some reason finding out that you have consumed throughout your life sets me a little bit more at ease for some reason.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. I've never spoken this online, but I had a felony at age 13 for selling weed in California. I got had to go to juvenile hall in Salinas, California, 30 days. That was an exciting place to be. It's the only white kid with long hair. Murder capital of the U.S. at that time. And so, yeah, the whole, just even the, traditional market transition to legal, and the pain and difficulty of that journey. I was in it. My biological father was a longtime grower on the Big Island. Um, Through the late 70s, early 80s, I was very welcome there before war on drugs. And yeah, they would interplant on the Hanmakua coast with sugarcane. So sugarcane is a long crop, longer season than cannabis. And so they would go in after the sugarcane got 8 feet tall, because the tractors wouldn't go between the rows anymore. They do anything aerial with planes. And they go in and interplant in between this nice, tall, shaded thing. All their fertilizer was there, all their irrigation was there, and they grow the full crop to full term outdoor in shade. And then they'd come in and harvest before the sugarcane harvest, just trucks and trucks of, I mean, they grew acres of weed. And then they sent it all USPS to the mainland. And the postal office was great with all the business, and Hawaii was great with all the cash influx. And then kind of the world changed, and they all stopped that. But yeah, so my kind of journey with weed is very yeah, it's from early age. And I think for me, it's not my mission, if you will. It's clean medicine. Like, it's part of it. It's definitely a huge part of the story. And I have family and friends that have are benefit from weed that's beautifully clean and true medicine with its full biochemical expression. So very important. And the world's going to shift. Our health crisis and hunger crisis will shift when ag is kind of freed from the kind of oppressive industry that it is now. And so that's kind of where I focus. And the sad truth is, if I talk a lot about weed online in my public space, I am blacklisted in the food space. So it isn't because I'm like afraid of, talking about the weed industry, or I don't, value what clean medicine means. It's because that's not my main thing. And there's great, I have students that are weed cats, and they're really, really good at it. Professor Quinn on IG is winning awards in Maine for his hash, and he is a great student and one of my soil smiths. He's come back for second round of training in kind of how to teach it, and he's a badass. And those guys are going to be the guys that really take natural farming and really teach it to the weed industry better than I could. Yeah, I taught natural farming to them, but ultimately they're the locals. They're the indigenous people. I've never grown weed, personally, like where I'm the responsible person for the crop. I've been involved in projects, but sorry, I'm running at the mouth. But yeah, if I get too pigeonholed, if you will, in a public space, then kind of what I want to do in working with governments and in natural farming, I can jeopardize that. And so I don't talk about it a lot in the public space, but that has more to do with, some other things that, the weed industry isn't responsible for. It's more just persisting prejudice against the industry as a whole.
So first of all, there's no such thing as rambling off the mouth here on this program anyway. So many other shows I see, when they have an amazing guest like yourself, they're so quick to have an agenda, or stay ahead of you a little bit and cut you off before you're kind of done saying what you're saying. I appreciate the stories. You know what I mean? I appreciate the time. So there's ramble off all you would like, my friend. First, secondly, I want to say I very much respect, I never really thought it that way. And it's sad that, you could be blacklisted for something is just as amazing. You know what I mean? So many people have to wake up to cannabis. It's coming whether they like it or not. But it's sad that it could put a tarnish on what you want to do. Secondly, I appreciate it. I didn't never really thought of it that way, but uh, a cannabis is such a small piece of land compared to what you're talking about fixing. You know what I mean? I can appreciate you wanting to stay to the bigger picture, because that's, of course, the bigger problem and the biggest thing that needs to be fixed. So huge respect to you, my friend. You have a long fight ahead of you.
Yeah, it's a journey, man. It's plotting world takeover. I mean, tongue in cheek, but really, that's if we can't aim there, then we can't dream. So we're aiming there.
So when was it that you realized or started on your path, on your journey towards KNF, or towards being, a proper soil steward?
Yeah, I had the great privilege of growing up in an ag family. My dad, first generation farmer, and but a very, very intelligent and passionate, like just conscientious man, somebody that took agriculture and went with it, open to learn all the things, and he did, and um, he was in land management, and I got to go on that journey as a kid. His transition into agriculture, we had pigs, and we ran cattle, and got to do. I got to ride with Hawaiian cowboys and bring in the cows and brand and castrate and eat the castrated testicles. Yeah, wash out the pig pens and realize that eggplant wasn't a viable ag business, and eat too much eggplant. I hate eggplant to this day. And he grew white pineapple, and then he got into macadamia nuts about 30 years ago. And I was a kid growing up in ag, and so I got to walk with him as we, kick tires, so to speak, through the orchard with some of the experts of our industry. And it's in me, and childhood jobs, working on the farm, um, and so I think he always had an appreciation for nature and its bigness compared to what we were doing in our ag. He's always been kind of in awe of nature in general, as not really not a big one for hubris, or we got this figured out. He was always kind of, I would say, humble in that respect. And so I think that was probably the biggest teacher for me, is just to be in awe of this thing that we're participating in as farmers. But I started managing the farm with him in 2008, and he kind of wanted to do some of this exploration into how to make organic agriculture viable for us, and he gave me a lot of leeway with that to do my job, but also to do R&D and learn and research. And then Master Cho taught his only 5-day training in my small town, 40 minutes to the nearest stoplight. And I got to sit in on that and be a part of that. It's like 16 people that got that experience in, ever in the English speaking world. And for me, I gave it a try on my farm. And then, 4 or 5 years later, we converted 750 acres to green natural farming and compost. And I ran trials and whatever through that process. But yeah, we still have it as part of our program, and now we do composting. And then I've been able to go on and do that different places with different agriculture. And yeah, but it started as a kid, and then I got the opportunity to learn, and I tried to capitalize on what I found out to be something that was really effective. And now I've come to believe that it could be really, truly the answer to a big question we've had in agriculture for a long time. And ultimately, we're just circling back to something we used to know. We used to know how to farm like this, and we forgot it because we found something better. But now we've discovered it's not better. And so it's a return to that. But now we can return with a lot of scientific understanding and real perspective on what it is we're doing, and hone it. So I'm into that, the research part of it.
Where's some of the favorite places that your journey has taken you? Where's you've had to have seen some beautiful places along this journey. Where's some of your favorites?
I was actually talking with friends this afternoon about the way I travel and perceive beauty. I love beautiful places, like topography and environments are amazing, but I experience it on 2 levels primarily, and it's culture and food. And so the people really end up being the things I find beautiful in different places. And I would say that Myanmar Burma, like in the rural country. Farmers are the warmest people in the world. The Karen tribes, they're the sweetest, gentlest people as a culture in the world, and it's deeply like you will be affected by experiencing that type of culture. That the Cambodian people are similar, and then Ireland. I was there last month, and Ireland has one of the warmest cultures I've ever experienced. The people are just incredibly sweet and welcoming. The pub culture is essential in Irish culture, and anybody can talk to anybody with welcome and belonging over a pint at a pub. And it's really special. Ireland is not a place I would go to for food, though. Just, I'm sorry, their food's wonderful. It's good. It'll keep you going and on the best fashion, but they missed like spices, and that was because they were, really in highly affected by, English rule and wars and all of that, and disease, even, to where there was real challenge. But yeah, just sweet people. And so I'd go back to Ireland, and then Thailand, as far as beauty as a environment and culture, and the food there. The food in Thailand is ridiculous. Yeah.
So I'm gathering spicy is the tongue there. If you like Thai food, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing to know when you order Thai food in Thailand is not Thai spice. Like, just say no to Thai spice. Anything else, like, you might survive, but Thai spice will put you down. Yeah. So if you get like Thai people spicy, no. Even if you really are like, oh, I can handle the hottest hot sauces in the US, it's a very different heat. In Thailand, it burns your brain out. So yeah, be careful there. But no, they'll serve it. They know, if you're in the city, they know that they can, or Chiang Mai is the city to go to. So there's a university in Chiang Mai. It's Thailand's most prestigious agricultural university, and the head of agriculture there is Dr. Anat. And Dr. Anat is also a student of Chohan Yu, my teacher, Master Cho. So we both have the same agricultural teacher in natural farming. So Dr. Anat runs a whole university based on natural farming principles and makes inexpensive ingredients available to farmers, using natural farming basically as kind of the Thai version of natural farming as his principle and kind of main practice. But yeah, got lots of beautiful places. I got to walk the cliffs of Moher in Ireland this last trip, and they are pretty spectacular. But I've gotten to see a lot of beautiful places. Hawaii and California were the two places I grew up, and just outside of Big Sur. And Big Sur cliffs, are right there in beauty, and Big Island of Hawaii has some pretty beautiful places too. So I would say the two places I called home are probably the two most beautiful places in the world that I know of.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So can KNF be used on a small scale for like home growers, basically?
Heck yeah.
Tell us, talk to, I know you usually speak to the bigger ag community, but talk to the cannabis community tonight. What can we use? How can we get started?
So my favorite tech in cannabis to do proper living soil is this horizontal system where you basically build a box. Put some fabric, some proper like landscaping industry fabric. It's not the like black plasticky like weed cloth. It's the proper fabric. It's thick, kind of like felt. And you put that on the ground. So if you have like a concrete floor, for example, you put felt down, and then you make a box. You could make a 4x4 box. You can grow 8 plants in the 4x4 box, and you layer it kind of like inch minus rock. That's about 10 inches. And then you do sand, silt, and clay, about 10 inches. You have about a 3 to 4 foot box depth of box. So even if you just make it 4x4, you can make that in a pretty small space for an indoor. But what you're creating, so you could do it in your garage, for example. And then what you're creating is a 10-year bed. You can still remove it if you needed to up and go, but you still have the raw materials to kind of remake the soil. Then you put in about 18 inches of soil and compost, your favorite kind of balanced, finished. You don't want unfinished hot compost. You want good, well-made, diverse ingredients compost. Find there's a one-time investment. So even if you find somebody that's doing it well, I have students that are making compost that are doing a really good job. Spend that time to get good compost, and then you put that compost layer in, but make sure that as you put that compost layer in, you create like maybe 6 inches of a mingle layer where you blend the sand, silt, and clay in the compost, kind of make them 50-50, so that there's like not a solid line between sand, silt, and clay and the compost, a nicely mingled layer, so that there's a good transition, good for water flow and root development down into that sand, silt, and clay layer, fungal development. And you make the box out of cedar, ideally, if you want it forever. You can make it out of pine or something cheaper, but you're going to get a great deal of fungal life going in this bed, and pine will deteriorate faster. Cedar is kind of a forever wood in this regard. And then you top dress with an inch of IMO4. This is the challenge because IMO4 has a bit of a learning curve. It's time to learn to make it. It's a bit of a process going down the KNF rabbit hole, really, to make it well. But you can find somebody that's, a soil smith. They've gone through the training with me, and maybe they're in cannabis, and you're like, hey, I'll pay you to make me some IMO4 just to dress this indoor bed. And, I'm sure you'd find somebody that'd be amiable to that. They're doing it for themselves. They could make you some. But really it's very doable to make it yourself. It's just about it's a learning curve. So give yourself a year to be like primo at IMO4. If you start practicing just with the free videos on YouTube, if you search Chris Trump, it's take you from step 1 to step 4. But that component is like vital, the IMO4, because the way this works so well is you're developing diverse fungal life in a cannabis bed. And we believe cannabis is anywhere from a 30 to 100 to 1 fungal to bacterial preference. And so what we're doing in creating this system and using good IMO4 is we're creating an ideal soil ecology or soil food web for them to thrive in. Whereas if we just use Bokashi or labs, by themselves, it ends up being too bacterial, and you don't process the food properly to the cannabis. They can't produce that kind of full genetic potential expression of biochemicals. Whereas if they have this on-demand nutrient, because the roots create a relationship with these fungal communities, then that sand, silt, and clay starts getting mined, that soil that all that compost develops into really fertile soil. And, a couple years in, you can reach all the way down to a rock layer, really with soil, black, rich, fungally rich, diverse, chock full of earthworms. And then all you have to do to run that is top dress with some, bokashi or good compost. Just be making your only real job now for nutrition is to make the richest, most fertile top dressing nutrients. So what you want to feed your plants, you make in a proper compost and fermentation, and then that goes on top. The earthworms devour it. You can bokashi food scraps or your plant material scraps, and you just got to keep. Now you've started this engine in the soil, and you just got to keep feeding it gas. So you're putting on organic matter and diverse nutrients on the top through a fermentation process, and then it'll seamlessly go into your system without causing any hiccups or disease or anything. Yeah, cannabis people that are using diverse fungal life in their soil systems, they're not dealing with disease. Very rarely are they even getting a PM, and that only time that happens is when environment was properly effed. I can cuss on your show. Yeah, so generally speaking, though, it is widely agreed that cannabis is not dealing with disease in an IMO rich system, and yeah, and bugs also, if you're doing it right, pretty much become a non-issue, because a plant that is fully healthy is able to produce complete proteins in its cell walls that are very difficult for bugs to process to get to that juicy center. In addition, Jadam has a pesticidal suite. Jadam was Master Cho's son. His name is Cho Han Kyu, and Cho Young Sung, and he is has a book on Amazon. Get the second edition Jadam book, and it's a full how-to step by step on how to make your own pesticides. Those are used by all the natural farmers to deal with anything you would be dealing with in cannabis, and it is extremely effective. Again, it's just about learning a craft and making it well. People make it poorly and have problems, and there's an answer. There's a reason why it didn't work, and it's really the process. Made properly, the system's highly effective and has been run in large scale operations for years now.
I know ag is the bigger picture, but are they as enthusiastic about learning about KNF
Cannabis,
and Jadam
cannabis,
as
cannabis
cannabis?
has been the early adopters by far, but I think it's because it's such a test heavy industry. Yeah, you see, like, somebody makes it this way, they win the cannabis cup, and they're like, yeah, KNF. Nobody's doing a corn cup for the best tasting or best quality corn. So cannabis, that focus on quality has really just shot natural farming up as a really popular thing, because people get their terpene profiles, they get their biochemical readouts, they're like, wow, the test plot with KNF did way better in the biochemicals than everything else I was running. It's a pretty science-based reason to switch over. And so, no, cannabis is by far the early adopter of natural farming in the US. Yeah, I'm really, really grateful for the enthusiasm. It's been a real pleasure to participate in the learning in the cannabis community.
Right on. The cannabis community is, something else, man. Amazing people, amazing, intelligent people from all walks of life. Proud to see more and more people be interested in being a better soil steward. Before long ago, it was the no-till revolution organics versus no-till, and I think everybody just came together and realized organics one way or another, as long as you were organics, you guys were on the same page. But
Yeah.
it's a powerful thing. I know I've learned a lot, you know. I've used soil in the past, and then we have grown mainly in cocoa and have came back into a soil type medium the last, well, it's pushing 2 years now. But before it was kind of the pump and dump, you know, just buy a bag of reliable soil. And just like anybody else, I think that's done that for a minute goes, man, this is a friggin' waste. You know what I mean? And at some point, you want to be, yeah, more again, a better steward of what you're doing. And I think more and more people are jumping on board and wanting to reuse and, you know, be better, more respectable farmers. No, not only that, but dipping into just the organics themselves. That's what I kind of was talking about earlier, man. When you dive into the soil and want to understand how it works, you really understanding life itself. You know what I mean? The microbes in the soil, the same microbes in the that are in you, same nutrients, same. You know, it's just a chain, and once you realize that, it's a powerful awakening in general. And then
Heck
I
yeah.
think I I I put it this way: uh, the cannabis plant is a bioremediator in that pulls shit out of the soil. But I think it's through that journey, I think you cultivate yourself as well. So you're cultivating the plant, but in the journey, you're cultivating yourself through that journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear, yeah, it's that sentiment you've expressed is really the echoed in the people that care to return to a healthier way of farming. What you're feeling, what you just eloquently said is really the crux of what you encounter when you find like minds wanting, and however they're doing it, wanting to return to a regenerative form of agriculture. It's a care for ultimately the development of humans, you know, and I think Fukuyama, I say his name wrong. He wrote One Straw Revolution, Fukuyama. Um, he said that the ultimate goal of natural farming is the cultivation and perfection of human beings, or development of human beings. You know, that's the kind of crux of it all. And so yeah, I think you're speaking with the greats as you say that, those exact things. Those are, I mean, and then if we've gotten there, whatever it is we're growing, we're doing all right.
I agree. It's kind of weird that as we go closer and closer to the full digital age, that it's weird that cannabis and other substances, natural grown substances, and more herbal remedies are coming more to the forefront. More and more people want a slower pace of life. More, they want to step back. You know what I mean? From it all. I can't believe the more and more the people that are waking up and want to slow down instead of speed up and you know what I mean, and step into
Yeah,
the fast forward net.
I hope that's the way it's going. I think a generation ago, I'm speaking like an old person now, but I'm getting there. Generation ago, the that was the opposite. It was everybody's leaving the farming, the kind of rural ag. Maybe two generations ago, we're going to go work in the city, or we're going to go get into tech. I wear clean clothes. I'm doing better because I wear clean clothes, and you know, and I think people are like, wait a second, that's not good for humans, to be in a office and at a desk, and or all of that, that there's a need for us to have connection with earth, and where our food comes from, etc. So I think there's a whole bunch of people that are like turning and saying, wait a second, I thought that was the direction, but I think it's back to, I want dirt under my fingernails, and I want my muscles to be sore, and whatever, at the end of the day. And I think yeah, who knows where we'll end up. It's a interesting thing, but I think you're right. Herbal remedies, and the reality that maybe nature's not broken and human health isn't broken. We just need to return to a better way of looking after it, which is that it's which is the recognition that it's not broken. We just need to stop messing it up, and so I laughed today because just found out the CDC came out with a statement on COVID, and they're like, social distancing isn't such a thing, and the vaccine is irrelevant. Don't prejudice on anyone that with or without it, and we're relying on natural immunity, and you don't even need to quarantine if you get COVID. We need to look to natural immunity and it's like, this is what's on the CDC now. And I just laughed to myself, like, what a weird place we're in, where we can kind of nod to different kings, if you will, two different directions. It's like, okay, yeah, all the powers that be, and here's also a better way for health in this coming season. And I just think I think that's kind of the dynamic we find ourselves in, as we're trying to figure this all out. Is there's a lot of vested interest in a way that's not working in the world. And so that's a lot of what I run up against in big ag is, we're not just talking about maybe what very realistically is a better way. We're also talking about messing with a lot of money, and pharma and big ag, and I'm not anti those things, really. I just think that we need to be free to look at another way. And yeah, I think that's a slow journey. I need more people on board.
That's you're making some headway, but you're absolutely right, man. 100%. The more I've learned, well, I'll tell you what, organics in general, last year and a half, 2 years, that journey for me has been pretty strong. I've taken it a lot from the soil last year and proud of it.
Good for
But
you.
so what's the biggest, hardest thing you have as far as, approaching big ag? Because it's out of control. You know what I mean? Just lately, I've watched a thing about just the dairy industry and how much money the government actually has in the dairy industry, which pushes and pushes and pushes a no-fail system, which is a huge part of the problem. You know what I mean? Feeding all these extra cows so they produce milk that we shouldn't necessarily be drinking on a large scale anyway. I mean, you have a huge fight ahead of you. I mean, where do you start? How do you even get them to sign on and open their ears when money's already against you, basically?
See, that's the cool thing, though. Money isn't. I mean, yes, money is against, and that it's massive, and so we're not going for a fight against all that money. We're or actually want to be insignificant. I want to be an insignificant cog in a systemic change, machine. Um, in We want dairymen to find a better way where they can detach from the teat of all that, subsidy, and make a living on their own. And that um, um, system displaces the one that exists. And I don't know what that'll look like. I was just in Ireland though, and I posted on my Instagram at SoilSteward an article that an Irish paper did on one of my students. He's a dairyman in Ireland, and he is crushing it. And so he talks real numbers on the savings he's had with natural farming, but he came and learned 2 years ago, and just basically switched his farm on a dime, like didn't just spun it 180 and went a different direction. And I was just out there, and 60 people came to learn for 5-6 days natural farming, and 50% of them, 30 dairy farmers, showed up because they had seen Tom Stack's farm and tasted his dairy. And so it's happening, man. I think there'll be this time next year a bit of a revolution in Ireland in dairy, because the word's getting out. So it's I would rather it be all these little fires that start all over, and slowly there's just not a customer for the poison, and there's just a better way that everybody's just like, oh no, we want to do it this way, and there's no fight or down with the man. It just kind of hitters out because people stop buying the products. And so yeah, it's a quiet revolution.
Where have you seen the biggest change?
Yeah, cannabis industry is huge. Massive change, massive adoption, more and more people, just flipping the channel. And and because they're saving a bunch of money on the fertilizer, it's also allowing them to be a little more viable when things get tight, when they need to sharpen their pencil. But we'll see. It's all feels pretty early still, it's yeah. Hey, I was thinking about it. I talked about a big kind of whole system KNF for cannabis, but there's cool little things you can do just to supplement your current system. Because I always tell people it's pretty hard to just how to do something one way, and to be like, I'm just going to try something totally new when your income's on the line. And so a couple ways you can mess with natural farming, while running your system. One way is to introduce microbes to a system you already run. So even if you're running salt and cocoa, you can take compost tea and run it through that cocoa, and it'll help your salts become more available in the root zone, and you'll get better bang from your buck from your bag of salt. You're going to get more nutrient uptake. You're going to get a healthy plant, less imbalance, because they'll absorb it in a better manner. It's still going to be dependent on what you're putting in there, but yeah, people can, and you're not going to be developing a community of microbes by doing that. They're going to die off because of the salts, but you can still get the benefit of flushing them through there with your water, and getting better uptake. So making liquid IMO, which there's a simple video on how to do that, and you can do that with an IMO 2, which is way easier access for. And so this is put rice out in the field, in the forest, get a collection of bloom, mix it with brown sugar, have it on your shelf, and you can actually just scoop some of that brown sugar concoction and throw it in and make a compost tea, and inoculate your plants with it. It's pretty easy entry. You can also do JMS, which there's a video on if you just search JMS. Also, it takes 1 day to make. You don't even have to do the whole IMO 1 process. Just grab some microbes out of the forest, And you can flush that through, or kind of water that in, and with whatever system you're running, they get some benefit from that microbial interaction in the root zone, some disease resistance, and generally plant health. And then maintenance solution is the last thing. And it's, I sell OHN on my website. You can make it yourself. There's a free video on YouTube on how to make it. It just takes like 2.5 months to make. So people sell it. Mine will be available on my website probably next month. I was out for a bit. I was traveling too much to kind of manage all the shipments, but somebody else is going to do that. But the maintenance solution, it's just vinegar, OHN, and then FPJ. These are all acronyms that are annoying when you're first learning about natural farming, because it's like you join the military, you don't know what I'm talking about. But fermented plant juice, OHN is Oriental herbal nutrient, and they're just components of plant food, and a real balanced plant food, real simple, light. It's like a light meal, like a snack. They're eating all they got to do. But maintenance solution is this natural farming prep that kind of is like a health tonic. And so it's vinegar. You can just get rice vinegar from your like local restaurant, supply store or whatever. OHN and FPJ. FPJ, pretty much anybody can make in a week with no skill or know-how before they watch their first video. So you just watch a video on FPJ, go do it, and you have your plant food a week later. Really simple. But follow the recipe well and it works well. But yeah, that maintenance solution you can spray every week. You'll see immediate results. It's really kind of readily available plant food. They can absorb it through their tissue. And then it's really balanced. So it doesn't create any unhealthy pH in the phytosphere, or the kind of phyllosphere. Thank you. Sorry. The leaf zone of the plant. Yeah, those are, anyways, I just talking about that whole system. I was thinking it'd be good for your cannabis crew to talk about really simple things you can do with the system you already have. And then what's nice about that is you kind of see results and you're like, wow, that really helped. Maybe more of the system would help more. And you can kind of incrementally step in a direction you want to go rather than risk your farm. And I wouldn't recommend that anyway. So much of the cannabis heads, they're experts at what they do, whatever it is they do, they're good at it. And so you don't want to kind of start a round of crop void of your expertise. You don't want to be a noob starting, because you know that your first grow is challenging. So maintain your expertise, do things you know how to work with, and bring in new components so that you can kind of healthily move and not mess with your money.
Thank you for that. Well, and as far as like microbes and organics goes, microbes and sugars were like a crazy rabbit hole for me. But what was one of the most fascinating things you found out about microbes in general?
That's a great question. All right, one fascinating thing I found out, something I love and I want to learn more about, is microbes on a leaf surface. So a lot of leaves in nature are just completely covered in bacteria, yeast, and fungi, like a crisscross, just like when you zoom in on the microscope view of the leaf, it's literally, there's a layer of microbes and then leaf tissue. And those microbes in nature can uptake atmospheric nitrogen. So they can literally be taking in the nitrogen of the air and processing it into their bodies, into their network system. And then by default, or by that process of them processing these nitrogens, they become plant available through the surface of the leaf. And so the plant that's covered in microbes actually is getting fed nutrients from the air nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen, by the process of assimilation that the microbes are doing on the plant surface. And then the plant has small interactions with the microbes through the leaf surface, which we don't really understand much about. But there's a dynamic where literally the air is part of your bag of fertilizer, if you will.
So they are, the deeper and deeper I get with microbes, I can't help but wonder. And I know it's a kind of a sad comparison, but man, it makes me feel like there's some validity to like the whole Avatar thing. I think there, I'm telling you, I think when they wrote that, they were thinking somebody was heavy into the organics at that point, the microbes, and was having some aha moments during the writing of that film, because I think there's a lot of truth to that. The more and more I've learned about plants and organics in the last year, and it's been amazing. I think I really believe plants are conscious. They're communicating. And I think 100% the microbes are the wires, or you know what I mean? That they're how information's being passed. It's fascinating. That's one of the things I have found fascinating about microbes myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've talked about it a couple times in some science talks, but there's a study in there's another fascinating thing for me. I'm excited for the new Avatar movie, by the way. That'll be fun. I love that movie. But in Japan, they did a study on Japanese cedar, and they caught rain in cups, like just outside of the cedar's canopy, right there. And then right under the cedar's canopy, where the rains hit the cedar and pass through and falls into the cup, kind of its leaves or whatever. And then they analyzed those cups, and the nitrification change, the nitrate cycle, nitrogen cycle. Sorry, that Terp Wizard, it works. Thank you. In the cup that just was from the rain, without passing through the canopy, the sphelosphere of the cedar tree, the atmospheric nitrogen converted to nitrates and nitrites, as that's a normal process that happens with rain nitrogen. The stuff that went through the canopy had a archaea, is a type of microbe, which inhibited the nitrification process, the nitrogen process, from going to nitrates and nitrites, and kept it in an organic N, or an ammonium, because that type of nitrogen is the preferred food in the root zone of the cypress tree. It prefers to eat ammonium. So when the rain hits the leaves, it stops it, or has an inhibitor that takes it one step further in the nitrogen cycle, but not all the way to nitrates and nitrites, because nitrates and nitrites aren't its preferred food. So it's literally it's floral, it's flora on its skin or on its leaf. Think of it like the flora of its gut. It's feeding itself the type of nitrogen it likes to eat, because it has a whole, microbe community in its leaves that are actually partaking or participating in the feeding of the roots. The plants orchestrates all of that, and it's a symphony. It's beautiful in its complexity. And yeah, I love that study. That was a great peer reviewable paper, so academic, science, but just also just this kind of nod to the symphony that nature is, just the incredible complexity that happens all around us.
another aha moment for me in this journey, uh, especially through KNF and Bokashi, looking into that ferments was well, in organics in general, like the relationship with like sugars, plants have and everything else, it was an aha moment. But it was like an aha moment when you like look into ferments and like just bokashi, just being able to dump on some sugars on like fish and come back and it had just it completely broke down. And you know what I mean? It's like, holy cow, that made me go, I don't know if I want sugar. Now I see how sugars can be bad, basically to the system. I don't know. It was a powerful moment, I guess, to see what sugar can do.
Yeah, it's I think there's yeah, it's I think the learning journey is also really fun for me. The That we can kind of say, oh, that worked and that didn't. I mean, that's really how we got the stuff that works, right? Is farmers before us tried something, it worked real well, and so they taught it got passed on, and the next farmer that tried it, it worked really well, so it kept it going. Farmers typically won't, I mean, Instagram has changed this, but farmers typically won't spend a lot of time telling their peers about something that totally failed. They're not gonna, make a big scene and teach their neighbors or teach their children how to do something that's not working for them. On Instagram, if you're trying to sell something, people teach things that don't work for them all the time. But you know, um, we got to weed through that now as those that pursue understanding on how to do things that work. And I guess that's just part of it. Um, Part of the big boom and access to information is also we get access to bad information. But yeah, I mean, learning about sugars and learning about proper ferments and how it all works. There's there's incredible science that we can use to really and people that have studied this before us that we can use to um, make our choices and educate ourselves to and by trial and error. Trial and error is a huge education tool on, oh wow, this did not work for me, made this way or done like this. And that's the I love that aspect of agriculture. It's unlike so many industries in that there's really nature works really well, so there's a lot of ways to go about success. And yeah, the learning the ways that work for us and the learning the ways that work in this environment and this industry but don't work in others is a lot of fun. I'm really grateful for that part of the work. What tell me about what you learned, like what your journey was in sugar. Like how did that start? What did you first learn? Like what was that journey like? Like what tell me like the like I found sugar moment and like how the crops went and the things that changed for you. Like just a little, like it doesn't have to be extensive, but I've never done that. I don't know much about what was available information wise, because a lot of cannabis I've heard about this, but I don't really know what the information was, what people were telling people to do. I'm gonna grab water. I'll be right back. I'm listening though. I'm here.
Right.
Um, it's kind of weird to talk to nobody in front of you though.
It is a little strange. But I don't know. First, the thing that I initially started to implement as far as feeding my plants was molasses. Uh, I've noticed that the sulfur in it was beneficial. Plants, of course, like easy sugars. So that was a win. And again, the magnesium that the plant could uptake from the molasses as well. Um, further diving in, I didn't realize that, the numbers of bricks to a plant had a great relationship towards its overall health. How it makes plant sugars, store sugars, was pretty awakening moment there. But again, how the sugars feed microbes and how intensely it can break down stuff in fermenting was pretty fascinating and scary, all in one at the speed, at the speed it could happen, and what it could actually break down was like pretty crazy. But
Cool. Heck yeah. That's yeah, I wonder a lot about that and the different things people do. And it's unique to the cannabis industry that there's so much different ways people do things, I mean, it's done in different cultures around the world, but in one place, all in the US, we have all these really diverse processes for making cannabis. Everybody's got their, thing. And yeah, I know that sugar and salt are kind of facilitators for a lot of lactobacilli family microbes to thrive, especially to process plant material. So they use the mineral rich kind of in the sugars and the salts to deal with and digest the plants you've kind of mingled it with. So it's kind of like a catalyst to digestion. Um, and Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's mind bending though, the all of it. I still am in awe of nature and yeah, breaks the
I
brain
guess
sometimes.
I guess another thing I've had kind of had with was um good sugars, bad sugars, I guess. Uh the way they can swing blooms of microbes both in your gut and the soil. Uh I learned that basically, through kombucha, basically
And
was one
yeah,
time,
yeah,
resetting the gut with ferments, sauerkrauts and stuff like that, apple cider vinegar, and trying to kill off some of the bad and, cultivate some of the good microbes. And what I found that with there and with sugars was when I stuck to natural sugars and I craved more fruits and, getting my sugar source like that, my gut, what's like the soil, I would keep the good microbes all good and healthy in a flat gut. But once I switched over to bad sugars, white sugars, corn syrup sugars, and stuff like that, boy, it didn't take long for the bad microbes in my gut to bloom and puff the old gut up. So I think
yeah.
it works in the soil the same way. You have to be very choosy of sugar inputs, for that very same reason, the good and bad blooms of microbes.
Good point. Absolutely. And that's a good correlation to humans. That I think that's actually also really helpful for plant farmers, just to make those kind of human correlations. They're like, oh, that we work the same. Yeah, it's a core natural farming philosophy when they teach the kind of cycle of plant growth, and they Master Cho would say, "You and I are one," is kind of this kind of umbrella philosophy around tracking plant cycles, from infancy to adolescence, to kind of childbearing age, that transition from kind of vegetative growth to reproductive growth that kind of overlays, a human development. And yeah, it's I think it's important to, as people that tend to plants, to be able to make those kind of correlations in us, and that, because it gives you a care and a love or an appreciation or an understanding of what you're doing that I think directly translates to yield and quality.
Do you think there is like an elder microbe? There's some pretty big blooms, I believe, around like Oregon and stuff like that, basically. Psilocybin mushroom kind of fucking mass that are miles wide and miles deep. Do you think there's one in particular strain, that microbe, that's more native, more elder than the rest?
I I think that microbes are like us. They work in community, and so I would buy into a original diversity, or a mother, cultivar, if you will, of diversity, where there everything's there that's supposed to be there, and it's just working in perfect symphony. I one day want to explore Tasmania, because they have the most diverse fungal population in the world in Tasmania, and it's just like, what is that all this diversity exists there, and what does that mean for the interconnectivity of that soil system? Like, how does information move in that, kind of like you're talking about? The I don't know. I think that I don't know about one. I don't think one can do it on its own.
It's amazing how something like a microbe, something so small, can make you feel so small. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the grander scheme of things, and what a fine line they serve in us, man. So many different species floating around. I think there's more microbes than DNA in the human body. And the only
Mm,
thing that actually keeps them in check is a fine line of temperature. If they ever adapt, then we may be hit.
that's cool. That I love that. Let's send me the audio clip of that section when you edit this, and I'll share it. Talk about Eagles eloquence. That I want that. I'm serious. Send me the audio clip. That was good. Yeah, it's I think that's it. I think that's the best thing for anybody aspiring to get really into this, is to, maintain the awe, recognize, because that's where we get into trouble, is we start saying, oh, I know about microbes and how this all works. I'm just going to do this because I have a good idea in my head. And then they get off on some, home creation. And yeah, there's some things people figure out that work, but I think if we just kind of maintain a little bit of awe and just say, you know what, this is pretty big. How does nature do it? I just want to kind of emulate that. I think we can actually achieve a whole lot more success. And I think people are going to understand the things they see a lot better and grow in understanding as they practice from that perspective, where it's because it'll teach you. Nature will teach you. Even an indoor grow will teach you about the laws of nature if you'll pay attention, and use kind of that observation that comes from what is nature doing. I'm the student, that I think is a really great way to learn. And I think ultimately you can arrive at real understanding, which I think, that I would say that's the, biggest, most important part of natural farming, is that it enables, excuse me, as I spin around in circles, um, as the farmer comes to understand nature, and all of a sudden you have a sense of how it'll work. Now, instead of guessing, you're like, I've studied nature. I'm a student of nature, and now I can ad lib or create something from a place of like, I know what nature does with this. I'm gonna go off recipe or off doctrine or off whatever. But I'm not doing it from kind of hubris of where like, oh, I got this figured out. I heard it one time. I'm gonna change the recipe tomorrow, and to a place of like, some of these cats, they just grow really well, and you're like, how do you do that? And then maybe they have a hard time even telling you how they do that. But then you watch them and you watch what they do. Why are you doing that? Oh, well, I've seen it. It always does this, so I do it this because it works better, and it's all these things that you acquire by just being a student of it over years or over time. That's where I think real mastery comes in any crop.
So, what has been one of your favorite things to grow? I mean, macadamia nuts may pay the bills, but do you enjoy growing something else outside? I mean, succulents, I mean, roses, cannabis. I mean, do you enjoy something in your spare time
Um,
cultivating?
yeah, I love raising sheep. Um, Sheep are truly the dumbest animals I've ever encountered, but there's a real joy in that whole process. And then I really like growing some different root crops. Taro is fascinating; it's a Hawaiian staple. And ginger, I love growing ginger. Um, yeah, I think if I could go back to farming, which I think I might do here in the next year if I have my way, I'd probably grow that if I had my choice.
Very good. I asked that because it's funny. I say quite a bit that I believe in cannabis as a medicine, and it isn't. I look at it as a medicine for many of ways. Sure, it could be recreational, but it's been medicine for 2,000 years. You know what I mean?
And not
But
in its current form.
true, true.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, the greatest botany. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no.
Keep going.
You're the guest. Please, please tell your story first.
No, continue. I'm sorry. So it's been medicine for 2,000 years. I cut you off. Continue.
I really believe that the more medicinal side of cannabis is the cultivation side of it, being with the plant. And again, kind of it cultivating you as you cultivate it. It's that time you spend is very zen. It's great for anxiety. It's very powerful, I mean, especially if it is your medicine. When you can't is a necessarily a real thing for you, and you make your own medicine. That's a powerful thing. It's a super powerful thing. So I really believe that actually the cultivation side of things is equal to the medicine itself. And I found out, through my research in organics and wanting to know more about horticulture, is they actually kind of knew that in the 70s that it could aid in PTSD, people coming back from veterans. It could aid in rehab in general, and they kind of just suppressed that. You know what I mean? So there's something very powerful about cultivation in itself. Sure, it's a great thing, when it's cannabis, but it's it transpires to everything. Roses, gardens, you know what I mean? It's a powerful thing, and it draws you closer into, I guess, being a better steward of the soil and yourself.
Yeah. Um, I totally agree with you, and I think you say roses and everything, and I would agree. Like agriculture in general, very much so. But I think cannabis. I mean, it's such a. Uh, I mean, it expresses so much of its biochemicals on its surface in oil glands, and somebody brushing up against that in any cultivation space, with this super absorbent organ that we have, that's our skin, with all the microbes, and then we have this endocannabinoid system in our bodies. I think that plant is really giving, even in just touching it. I think there's, and who knows how much, neural regulation is happening just by brushing up against and getting, a light coating of oil on your skin. That could be, I mean, that could literally be the medicine. People are like, oh, I don't want, psychoactive, da da da. But what if literally just having a brush by on, of a cannabis plant would be enough to neuroregulate a bunch of people that are just a little stressed out, like having one in their house, and just walking by it as they go out the door, getting their little, daily vitamin dose of, endocannabinoid regulating, biochemicals.
It could be.
Cannabis is unique in that way, I think, but a lot of plants have stuff on their, like, exudates on their systems, and we don't even go barefoot in nature anymore. Like, how much effect is all those things that brushing up against nature does through the super absorbent, part of our foot?
Oh, you just hit another spot where organics is. But I'm telling you, organics took me in places I knew it would. I've almost slammed the door a little bit because it was every bit of a rabbit hole that I knew it would be. I mean, it's a fascinating subject. Even if you want to grow or not, it's a fascinating subject. Microbes I mean, I'm still stuck in the microbes rabbit hole, but it's very fascinating in many levels. For sure. I kind of squirreled where I was going with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Mr. Eagle, it has been a great pleasure. I need to go to bed. I got to drive tomorrow and get up early. But yeah, man, this has been a great talk.
You've made it very easy. And I was very intimidated at the start, as I told you, off air, pre-show. And you have made this very fun and easy on my end. And I can't thank you enough. There's a lot of gems that you shared with the cannabis community tonight. And it was a pleasure getting to know you a little deeper on at some point, what makes this hard is, it'll, a lot of the videos that I watched, it was like rinse, lather, and repeat. You know what I mean? To where the same questions I seen from a lot of the same interviewers. And I think at some points, for people like yourself, I think there's like a point where they're like, man, can we just talk about something else for a second? Or it's hard to come at a different angle until you've made that very easy and fun and mixing both. You know what I mean? Things I know you repeated 100 times and some new information. And it has been very fun and on my end, getting to know you.
Cool. Yeah, no, I've really appreciated the format. I think giving liberty to just shoot the breeze and talk about whatever comes up is a great way to talk about all of this, because I think, like you said, so much of the time we miss just the what if, and oh, this is how cool was this little thing, and those aren't the topics that'll really get you there if you're trying to get a bunch of information out of the conversation. But they're really the fun things that make this so magical and really enjoyable to do. So yeah, I appreciate it.
So I cannot not go over this because you're guest just like any other. So basically, the way things that work on this channel is there's three aspects of the show. There's, fucking talking shit with me. And then there is the Weed Nerd World, which is basically the Weed Nerd World is a panel show, and it's only open to past guests, which is, as of tonight, the possibility of 690 people at any time the show opens. And that no invitations needed. If you just happen to flip it on and we're talking about something you'd like to discuss, come hang out. You just click that link that I sent you. It is always good for whenever you want to chime in. We would be very grateful and honored to have you on the panel at some point. So please keep that in mind. Keep the link aside. And the last
Yeah.
thing that I would like to get from you is a crazy old school radio soundbite. Basically, what I'm looking for in my version, and if you want to skip over the fuck, I can completely understand. But basically, what I'm looking for in my words is, hey, this is Eagle, and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 695. You can say whatever you want before, after that, as long as that's in the body somewhere, I would be more than grateful, and I am ready now.
Hi, this is Chris, and I'm on Talking Shit with Eagle, episode
695.
695. And we are gonna have start over. I know you can cut that.
Right.
We are gonna have a great time talking about all the things microbe and the magic nature.
Thank you, my friend. And this is well worth the wait. And again, thank you so much for your time. It's the most valuable thing we have. And people should realize that when you're out there trying to wake them up and get them to do the right thing, to be good soil stewards themselves. So I do appreciate all the free information that is on your YouTube. And I appreciate all the information that you put out there with the Regenerative Soil Conference and everything you do. It's very important. So I appreciate you, good sir.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It was an honor. It was a huge honor on my end. Thank you very much. For the rest of you guys, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time as well. Do not forget to do something nice for somebody. Random acts of kindness do save lives. And with that being said, thank you, Chris. One last time. We are out of here, good sir.